Hello everybody and welcome to the latest Brain or Shine webinar with me and Jules.
Hello and welcome.
So today we're going to be talking a little bit about emotions and functioning after brain injury. But just before we get started, just for anybody who hasn't joined us before, the webinar is due to last for around about 25 minutes. And you can put anything you like in the chat and we will try and answer any questions or comments, or if you feel that there's anything you want to share where you look at it and think that would be really helpful if that this has really helped me, or that would be really helpful to share to other people, then please do that as well. If we're partway through something and we don't answer straight away, we will come back to it, so we're keeping an eye on the chat. But if we don't break straight away and answer, it's not because we're ignoring you, it's just because we might be in a little bit of a flow or something. And Brain or Shine, if you haven't met us before or haven't seen us online, we're here to help people who are affected by brain injury. So I have the brain injury, as many people know, but Jules also has to live with the brain injury every single day because she has to live with me. So it's not just about what affects me, it's about what also affects Jules as well, and people around us like friends and family.
And we particularly look at and we're about the hidden disabilities, because looking at Mark, I know you can only see his head and shoulders, but you know, he's high functioning after brain injury. So a lot of his effects from it are hidden. And those are the ones that do seem to cause an awful lot of problems because people don't understand them. People don't think there's anything wrong with you. And it's very hard to understand what these hidden disabilities are. So we really do focus more on that side of things.
Yeah, I'm very sporty, very active as well. So a lot of people, challenges I get sometimes is people will say, well, you know, you're fine the other day, you ran 5 miles or you cycled here or you played a sport or something like this. Thankfully, through understanding and through talking to people and educating myself and being honest with other people around me, that happens a lot less now, which is really good. So what we're going to talk about today, as just mentioned, is strategies after brain injury. We called it useful strategies for life after brain injury. That sounds pretty obvious, really, doesn't it? You don't really have to explain what that means.
So some of the sort of hidden disabilities that often people suffer from are things like memory issues, memory loss, fatigue, difficulty with your emotions because they can be so erratic. Things like visual perception can sometimes be affected, and things like, you know, finding it hard to work out how to do something, whereas before you just pick something up and off you go and do it. But following on with the hidden disability, the brain's not functioning like it used to and it cannot process information. So we're just going to sort of go through a few things today, and it's not exhaustive, this list. There's lots and lots of tools and tips out there, but we're just going to share with you some of the ones that we found effective. And as Mark said, if you've got ones that you found effective, then please do share them, because that's what Brain or Shine is all about, helping people to shine through brain injury.
So the first one I wanted to start with is around planning and how to get around planning, because before brain injury, I probably wasn't the most organised person in the world, I'm going to be honest. And I used to leave a lot of things to chance. And then when we set up our own business, I couldn't do that anymore. I had to get really good at planning. And that's when I started writing things down and doing to-do lists and planning things in diaries, making sure that I knew where I was going to be every single day. Of course, a few years into running our own business, I suffered my accident, which left me with a brain injury. And I found this a lot harder to do because I felt like I'd stepped backwards to way before the person I was when I left things to chance. So that became really difficult. And it's really funny because I was just about to say what Tim's just put in the chat there. One of the biggest challenges I had was I would know I was doing something at, say, Monday at 10 o'clock. But one of the downfalls is I forget to tell Jules that, or I forget to tell somebody else, or I forget to write it down and I completely forget the meeting myself. So that became a real issue, and I had to get really good at it. And this is exactly what we've done. Is Tim's just put in there about, hi Tim, by the way, because he put hello everybody. He just put in there about setting up a group diary with a family on mobile devices. And this works so well for us because this is a way of using technology to our favour. So I don't know if you struggle with some of these things where you sometimes know what you're doing or don't know what you're doing, but the calendar on my phone is absolutely brilliant because if I put something in there, it tells Jules I'm doing it straight away. And if Jules puts something in there, it goes into my calendar, but also it will send me reminders. And I think mine sometimes is set up about a day or so beforehand. So I know what's coming up tomorrow because I'll get a reminder about 24 hours beforehand, which is good because then that refreshes it in my mind. So that's a really simple tool for planning.
Well, it's for planning, but it also is a tool for your memory loss part of that, because sometimes it's difficult to remember to do certain things like taking your medication or appointments at doctors or scans or things that you need to do. So that can really help in terms of making sure that you try not to forget things. You can even put photographs and keep those of where you put certain things like documents, or even just things like your car keys. You come in, you put your car keys down, and then the next time you go out, where's the keys?
Yeah, I tend to try and put things in the same places as well. So where we are at the moment, most stuff relating to work is here next to us. Just over there, which you can't see because it's off camera, my wallet's there. I'm going to not tell you just in case, and keeping it in a secret place. But also by the door, the car key's always got a little hook. So for me, when things are kept in the same place, that's good. There is a time where you're rushing in because you've got a load of stuff in your hands or something. You might put the car keys in a different place, and that really throws me if it's in a different place. So I tend to make sure that I keep things in the same place. And you're really good at that as well. You're very organised.
Yeah.
So I don't like clutter.
But if we talk about planning, one of the other things, we call it the 2 Ps, which is planning and pacing. So again, pacing is very good because one of the things that hits most people is fatigue. And if you can learn to manage and build in strategies for understanding your fatigue and pacing yourself, that will help you to live that life that you want to live.
Yeah, too right. We've talked a little bit about this on previous webinars, and certainly on the podcast, we've done an episode on fatigue as well, which I'm sure you guys are all sitting there and hearing me on this one, because fatigue can just hit you at any point. And I find sometimes that I can wake up in the morning and feel absolutely, focused, ready to go. And half an hour later, that's gone. And there's absolutely no reason for it. There sometimes are reasons, but there could be absolutely no reason. It just feels like I've been, I don't know, hit by a truck. I don't know whether that's, I feel like my brain has, certainly. So the pacing is really important. And it's also good as well for me to look at that, go back to that diary and that calendar and think, right, okay, we've got this today. So the next day, I'm going to plan in some rest time as well.
Yeah, and planning rest time beforehand, or maintenance sleep, as we like to call it.
Yeah, we came up with that one the other week, didn't we? I said, I'm going to go for a maintenance rest today. I don't feel really tired. I thought, actually, I quite like that because, maintenance rest is just maintaining my battery, maintaining my brain. Yeah,
absolutely. It's about maintaining your battery level like you do on your phone. It's the same sort of thing. And we've had somebody say on here that they find it difficult when you have interruptions to your planned day. Because say like if somebody calls round or something and you've not planned it and you've not rested beforehand, totally, I get that, because I see that in Mark very often, when we know what we're trying to achieve that day and then something else pops in, and particularly if it's something new, he finds it a struggle to change and flip into doing something that we weren't planning to do. So yeah, interruptions can really throw your day a bit.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that one, Sue. We actually had that last week or the week before, I can't remember now, where we were actually working on something business related, and an email came in about something that was quite important, and it absolutely threw me because it was something that had to be done right now. It was a financial document that needed doing. It was really, really important. Now, I don't do financial documents. They're a pain. They need a lot of information filling in. But that absolutely threw me for about 3 or 4 days afterwards because we had to work on it straight away, and neither of us really fully knew what we were doing on it. So it required both of us to think really, really hard. And that knock-on effect after that was horrendous for me. I really, really struggled to deal with it. And it was, yeah, as you say, it was something that was just thrown in there. But it can be something as simple as a friend calling you, or somebody knocking on the door and paying you a surprise visit, or something that's really, really nice, but you're not expecting it, and you've planned your day out, and the next thing is you've got to replan and go for something that changes.
And I guess going back to fatigue, and it is such a biggie because the knock-on effect from fatigue is huge. And this is something in the early days we didn't know because we didn't understand what fatigue was, and we didn't understand what chronic fatigue can cause, which is, the anxiety and the depression. And that hit us really hard, really, really hard, to the point that often Mark was just in his own little shell and couldn't communicate. And it wasn't just with me, but with friends, family, anything. And it had a massive effect on our relationship, which is quite common, isn't it?
Yeah, too right. I was avoiding lots and lots of social situations, lots of conversations. I mean, there'd be times where the phone would be buzzing and I'm thinking, I'm not picking that up, I'm not answering that phone because I just don't want to have a conversation with somebody. And I still do really struggle to have long conversations on phones because it's difficult. I'm having to really focus on listening. And again, I don't know if anybody else is affected out there by that, but the video call isn't so bad, but the actual audio call I find really, really, really hard. And then I find I've just drifted off and I haven't heard what the person's saying. Bless her, my mum must have been telling me lots of stuff the other day when I phoned her, and I can't remember. Jules said something because it was on speakerphone. She went, "Oh, your mum said that," and I was thinking, did she? I don't remember her having that conversation. Perhaps I just wasn't listening to my mum. I don't know.
Quite often. Just been asked, when was your TBI? It was back in 2012.
Yeah, so 12 years ago it's come up. And in the early days, it was definitely a lot worse than it is today. So when I experienced the fatigue and the stress about the financial document, that was quite an extreme case, which really did throw me. But that's a lot more rare these days. So I don't want anybody to sit there and worry and think, oh, well, I had my TBI a year ago, or I suffered mine 6 months ago. Is this it? Is my life over? It's like the answer is no. I've made so much progress on this from certainly the last 6 years, from getting support and understanding what brain injury is.
Definitely, and using these strategies that we're saying to manage your battery and plan your time effectively and pace, because often, like we say, from fatigue, the anxiety again can literally come from nowhere, and that can be hard to manage. But also the anxiety and that feeling of lowness can come from that emotion of that sense of loss, because you realize that you're not the same person that you were pre-brain injury. And that was a very, very difficult one, again, for us in the early days, to understand the changes that were going on in your behavior and everything. And eventually accepting this is where we are now and these are the changes. And some of them, you can't go back to the person that you were. So that sense of loss can again kick in sort of depression or really low mood.
Yeah, it certainly can. And as I say, it's something that's a lot less these days, and I'm glad that we just got a little comment saying thank you. That's really encouraging to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, phone calls. We put comments about phone calls being really draining and everything on there. And I think sometimes it's the load of information. So again, just another very, very quick example, but Jules and I are public speakers, and we've spent a lot of time speaking to big audiences, and I absolutely love doing that. And right from the day of my brain injury to today, it's not something that I've struggled with in the sense of it hasn't knocked my confidence. I've been able to do it and I've been able to engage and talk. But if you switch it round, if I sit in the audience and listen to a public speaker, I'm just drained because I'm taking the information in. And there's, again, no predictability on it. I can go and see one public speaker, or I can go and see one showman or whatever show, somebody on stage, and I can be totally engaged in it and feel buzzing when I go away. And then I can see another speaker 10 minutes later or 2 days later or whatever point, and I'm just wiped out. So it's nothing to do with the speaker being boring or interesting. It can have a lot of different effects, and especially like with flashing lights and so on. But again, that's, as I say, I'm sort of sidestepping from phone conversations to somebody standing up and talking with me, and likewise in a conversation with friends. It could be, we could be sitting there talking to one other friend across the table, and I'm really struggling to listen to them, versus sitting in a group of 25 people, which is, again, can be quite difficult. So I'm sure you guys are all going to agree with me if you have the brain injury, or if you're sitting on Jules' side thinking, yeah, that happens as well.
I think it's really important. I mean, we created a fatigue management sheet, which really, really helps you to understand in more depth your own levels of fatigue, particularly what your triggers are. Mark was just saying some of the things that really kick his off. And I think once you can get to understand that, that will help you to plan and pace your time, because you'll know what things will kick your own fatigue off. But it's also for the, what I call the Juleses of this world, the people living with somebody with the brain injury. It's so useful for us to have this understanding as well. Because it affects us differently, because we still have to live with it. We don't actually have the fatigue, but we have to understand how we can help that person manage it, and also us to be able to be aware. And sometimes as well, I can see the fatigue kicking in earlier than Mark does. And like, for example, driving and things like that, I can just say to him, look, I'll take over, I'll do this, because I can notice quite quicker than he does that the fatigue is starting to affect him.
Yeah. We've got a couple more comments there. Grieving a lost person. It's like grieving a lost person is very, very true, because there's times where I think, I used to be like that, now I can't do that, or now this takes a lot longer. And agreement on social situations being very difficult. But comment here as well, it says, I keep forgetting I'm a brain injured and I don't remember to pace myself. I was an overachiever and kept falling into old behaviours. And that is something where I really struggled in the early days, because I was released from hospital very, very quickly. 8 weeks down the line, told to go and live my life as normal. Now, my life pre-brain injury was public speaker, running half marathons, playing football regularly, traveling up and down the country in my work, traveling on holidays, doing loads and loads of things. And people used to say to us all the time, you do more in a weekend, you two do more in a weekend than I do in a month, or even 3 months or whatever. And I remember being told, just go back to living your life as normal, because you're very high functioning. They didn't actually use that word at the time.
No, we didn't even know what high functioning meant for years either.
In fact, we didn't even know the term brain injury existed. So that to me was amazing. And funnily enough, on my Facebook page, I keep getting memories popping up, because it was August when I had my accident. So I'm in that loop now of memories from 12 years ago pop up and say, wow, I'm doing much better. I've been to such and such place today. I drove to here today. I went to this and I went to that. And I could even read in it, it's like, okay, my head's getting better now. My injury's getting better. because I just referred to it as a head injury.
Yeah.
And you know, again, if you've broken a bone, like a wrist or a leg or something like that, you work towards your recovery and you work towards the time it's better. I broke my wrist years ago and it never fully recovered, but I don't sit there every day and think about it now, and it doesn't affect me. It certainly doesn't make me tired or angry.
No, and talking of anger, all these things that you're now faced with, the fatigue, the anxiety, the sense of loss, all these different things, they can give you the emotions of feeling like really, really frustrated and anger, like you say, and that can just pop up. And that's really, really difficult to manage, isn't it? Because it flares. I think things flare up, don't they, from nowhere, and they make you angry, they make you frustrated, and it's very, very difficult to recognize sometimes. And how do you stop that anger and that frustration sort of eating away at you?
Yeah, too right. So that was the last thing we were going to talk a little bit about, was emotions. So we've mentioned anger, we've mentioned stress and anxiety, obviously fatigue there. But there was one thing that we talked about. We actually talked about this in our latest podcast episode last week as well, which is it's about the loop of emotion. So I'm going to give you a little example. I got up a couple of weeks ago on Saturday morning, and we was off to do a running event, which I was really, really excited about. Jules was really excited about, and I felt my levels of focus and energy were probably about 9.5. And I went out the door and I turned around and I went smack and I walked straight into the patio door here. And it's really weird, but I tend to walk into things on my right hand side. I don't know why. I didn't hit my head or anything, but I hit my shoulder on it. Now, the previous day I had actually hit my head. I banged my head on the door. I cleaned my teeth and I went like this with the towel to wipe my mouth, and I just boom, headbutted the corner of the door. So that was quite painful. And a few hours before that, I'd also whacked my hand on the door. So I had a bit of a bruise just here. So this is the third time, bang, straight into the door like this. And because that happened, it sort of shocked me a little bit. You know, when you sort of walk into something, oh, what was that? Or you hit something, what was that? And I went from probably about a 9.5 to a 2 or a 1 in my fatigue and emotion level. I just wanted to cry. And Jules was like, are you okay? And I just felt like I was going to collapse on the floor into like a little ball and curl up like this. And it was really, really hard. I sat on the settee for a couple of minutes, got up, went and finished getting ready, and then I just laid on the bed, spent another 2 minutes thinking, what am I going to do here? Because if I stay here, my mood's going to spiral even lower. But that triggered off a real loss in confidence. And then Jules asked me a question, and it was about making a decision. So do you want this? Do you want that? And I can't remember what the question was now, but I couldn't make the decision. I just could not make a decision because my whole confidence just went out the window. Now, I had two choices. I either stayed at home, which I knew would spiral me down further, or I would go to the running event and just pick myself back up again. And I decided to do the latter. And then when I was running, I found I was really enjoying it, and my energy levels start coming back up again. And when we finished the race, the whole episode had gone. What was really strange, when we came back home, it was almost like walking back to the scene of the crime, and my whole energy level just went, I think I saw the door. But the fatigue kicked back in, and that almost triggered a spiral of emotions. So it was quite difficult. But the only way I could get past it was by creating a growth mindset and thinking, okay, that's happened. So what am I going to do now? I've got a choice. I've got a choice about how I plan my emotion. And I couldn't just flick a light switch and say, I'm going to be really happy now, and I'm going to ignore that's happened. But every time I felt my emotions dropping down slightly, I looked at ways to bring them back up again. And I looked at ways to keep pushing back up. So if it was dropping down really low to a 2 or a 3, it's like I need to get to a 4 or 5, not a 10, a 4 or 5. It's just making little steps. Okay, now I'm at a 4 or a 5. How can I get to a 6 or a 7? And it was just doing things that I enjoy doing. And it might have been just going standing outside and just looking at the sky, looking at the trees, looking at whatever really, really draws you in, whatever you love to do or whatever you love to see, putting your favourite song on, playing a bit of music or something along those lines. It's just those little things that can make the big differences.
Absolutely. And I mean, we've been learning some breathing techniques as well. And we find they're really good to help bring you back down from these heightened emotions that happen.
Yeah, I'm going to give you one last little tip here today, one little tool before we finish off. It's just mindful of time. But our friend locally is just trained as a breathwork coach. So I had no idea what she was talking about first, but then she explained to us about learning how to breathe. And this is something that we've been quite keen on over years, is looking at regulating your breathing and regulating your blood flow through your body. So she explained to us, a breathwork coach, is I can teach you how to breathe. And it was really fascinating because the tool that she gave us last week is just about sighing. And I thought, okay, how's this going to work? So I found the other day that if you just sigh and just go, that then lets out a lot of energy and a lot of negative energy if you're feeling like this. So I thought, right, I'm going to use our friend's technique here. And every single time that I'm starting to feel really anxious, because my anxiety was rising up, I just let it out like this. And then, of course, Jules is going, are you okay? It's like, yeah, just doing my breath work here. And just letting it out.
It took a little while to get used to this new noise that he was making, but it works. It's a fantastic tool. And some of these things, they're just simple ones, but they can really be effective. And we're going to be using some more of these and possibly getting her onto a webinar to do some breathing exercises with you guys to help you as well, because she is the expert.
She is indeed. She's going to give you a lot more techniques than I did just there with the silent, but definitely try that one to start with.
And mindfulness, Tim, mindfulness is wonderful. I find that very, very grounding and just very wonderful, just to shut everything out and just be in that moment wherever it is that I am. So there's lots of different ways that you can help manage the emotions and the fatigue and the different things that kicks off. And I say this, we haven't got all day to be able to give you lots and lots, so there's a snapshot of a few of them, but box breathing, Tim, absolutely. But we hope some of these will help you guys.
They've certainly helped us, so that's really, really good. But we're going to sign off now in a moment, because obviously we're aware of time, and we thank you for joining us, and also thank you so much for engaging in the chat as well, because that really makes our job a lot easier here. So just a couple of upcoming things and a couple of tools for you that you can access. First of all, the tools. If you go to brainwashshine.com, you'll find absolutely everything we've got on there, which is future webinars, recordings to past webinars, and there'll be a recording to this one available to you guys who are on here straight away now. We'll also post it with some subtitles onto our YouTube channel. Also on brainwashshine.com, you can find our podcast, which is a fortnightly episode on there. Please do have a listen, share that as well with anybody else that you know that can help. It can help. We have a blog, so you can read, you can listen, you can watch. And there's also a regular newsletter. So if you're not already subscribed to that, then please do, because again, there's plenty of tools. That sounds like a lot of information, and we always say just pick the ones that work for you. But also, please do tell people about Brain or Shine, because everything we're doing on here is free to anybody who's affected by brain injury. And we just want to get the message out there to people who are brain injury survivors like myself, but also people who are living with it like Jules, and friends and family around there as well. Tim mentioned that these guys, the Juleses of the world, have to work harder than we do sometimes as well, most of the time.
Thank you so much for coming along, and your thank yous, and love your podcasts. Thank you so much. I'm glad that they help, and we wish you all lots of love, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, wherever
you may be, and we will see you all very soon. Take care.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.